name is Edward Dan and welcome to EthiVegan. Today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Max Tux. Hello Max, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well thanks, yes.
Now we're here in my flat in Highbury, London, and Max has come over all the way from southeast or south?
South Central, yeah, Southampton. Just to the east of Southampton.
How's your travel?
Oh, perfect. Enjoyed it. Yeah.
Now you're actually a trained vet, but you're an author of 3 books. Amazing.
That's right. Yes. And not on veterinary medicine, I hasten to add.
Right. Now, do you want to tell us about your 3 books you've got here? And I'll read the titles here. The first book is The Whole Body Solution. The second book is called Love Your Bones, and the third book is called The Fatigue Solution.
Yes.
Amazing. Now you've got a massive story, haven't you, about your backstory about creating all these 3 books.
I do, and I suppose what we should do really is just do it in brief. So a brief summary. So in 1.5 minutes, probably, or less, ideally.
Well, take as much time as you want, really.
Okay, so 28 years ago, I had a health crisis. I had a complete crash in my immune system. I was diagnosed in 1990 with Epstein-Barr chronic fatigue syndrome and was told by the medical profession in no uncertain terms that A, there was no treatment or cure, and that B, I would need to go home, sort my affairs out and live a compromised and fairly rubbish shortened life. And being a rebellious little thing,
I can't imagine that.
Putting it mildly, being a rebellious little thing and not being prepared to be told what to do, I decided that I would ignore their suggestion and that surely there must be advice. Yes, yeah. Go home and die. I don't like that kind of advice.
I don't want that. I don't want my reality to be that.
We don't want that reality, do we? No. Absolutely not. Not at age 27. No. So I decided that I would prove them wrong and I would fix myself. So that's what I did, and I researched and came to the conclusion that high percentage raw vegan diet was clearly the way to go, or rather high percentage fruit and vegetable diet was the way to go. Back then I didn't know about the potential damaging effects of too high a fruit consumption, but I had massive intake of lots and lots of raw vegetables, was still eating a little bit of kind of traditional food on the side, such as white meat, fish, etc. So I wasn't fully vegan at that time, but became fully vegan in 1998. So, and then I became actually, by a massive leap, a 100% raw food vegan at that time. And then the rest, as they say, I guess, is history, but then went to the States, studied at Hippocrates Health Institute, became a health educator under their system, and decided that maybe people might be interested in my health journey, and that by perhaps writing about it, as I have done in The Fatigue Solution, my most recent book, it would help other people to have that opportunity to maybe not be convinced that they have an incurable condition and that there are things that they can do to fix themselves. And so I'm hoping to, by writing these books, to get the awareness out there that we don't necessarily have to be confined by a diagnosis.
So how has your future been since obviously you decided to move from high raw to raw?
Yeah.
And obviously there's a difference between the two, isn't there? And also there's a difference between vegan and raw vegan.
Yeah, there is. Yes, vegan is a general diet, of course, that does not contain any animal derivatives. So it's a very healthy way to eat, it's a very ethical way to eat, and it's a very sustainable way to eat. And I guess raw vegan is taking it sort of to the next stage. And I do know some people who are vegan for ethical reasons, and all credit to them. I totally support and respect that. But I think what they could do perhaps is look at the quantity of processed food that they're eating, because there's a plethora of processed foods now available for vegans, which is great because it makes it easier for people to make that transition. But if you're eating food that is not prepared from scratch yourself, it's not going to be as healthy. So my thing is being as healthy as possible for as long as possible. I'm very much into the concept of peak performance, longevity, feeling fantastic until you're 106 and you want to go surfing in Hawaii. And that's actually what I intend to do on my 100th birthday. And I intend to get a group of people together and go surfing in Hawaii. So you are all invited.
I better know you by then as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, not as many years to go as you might think, actually.
Well, not for me, certainly.
So anyway, back to the books. The Fatigue Solution was published last year.
This is this book, isn't
that's
it?
this blue one here,
Yes.
with a cover that's actually got, that is me on the front, running. Right. And the other thing I did was, in addition to massively changing my diet, it was also important for me to regain all the muscle that I'd lost, because I was very ill and very sick and I weighed next to nothing, and you could count my ribs from 50 paces and I had no muscles left. So one of the features, I guess, of my recovery was the fact that I made myself, even though I felt like doing nothing, I made myself go to the gym and rebuild this physicality that you now see. So I wrote about that, and I also, once I was well, decided to, I guess, put this body to the test to see what it was capable of. So I started running, which I very much enjoy, and then thought, well, if I'm starting running, I may as well run a marathon in the future.
As you do.
As you would. I started karate, which I love, and if you're starting karate, you may as well have this aim to be a black belt. So,
and you are a black belt as well, aren't you?
I am.
You don't do things by half, do you, really, Max?
I do not do things by half, no. So I'm all about the upgrades. So for me, a vegan diet, creditable as it is, was not enough for optimum health and peak performance. I encourage people to add what we describe as the living foods to their diet. So the sprouted foods, of which there are 6 categories, which I write about in the Whole Body Solution. And I write about upgrades. Now, nobody, unless they're sort of very determined, is usually able to completely transform themselves overnight and make so many changes that they're, sort of not doing anything like they used to. Whereas what we can do, for the most part, is we can do tweaks and upgrades. And I always talk about upgrading and encouraging people to upgrade and just choosing better versions of the food that they're currently eating.
But it's also choosing better versions of themselves or ourselves.
Definitely.
Certainly for me, moving from a meat-based diet to a vegan diet, and now adopting some raw food into my diet. There is a sort of transition process, isn't there?
Very much so, very much so. And for some people that transition process can happen if they're totally committed and don't have too many, kind of external pressures on them. They can make that transition very quickly, and that's what I did. But if they are in a more kind of traditional setting, it might be more difficult for them to make those upgrades in a rapid way. So as long as people are moving towards the upgrades, then I think they're doing themselves a massive favour.
Brilliant. Now, do you want to tell us about each of these books then?
Why don't we? Yeah. Okay.
So you started off with the Whole Body Solution. How did that come about?
The Whole Body Solution came about because I was giving private consultations to clients, and I was ending up spending a lot more time on the reports I was writing for them than I was on the consultation itself. So decided to write it all up as a report, because a consultation with me has several parts, and I look at each aspect of each body system, if you like, of which there are 9. So it was a chapter for each body system, and then I would refer clients to, say, section 3 if they had a particular problem, or if their main concern was, let's say, the immune system, I would refer them to chapter 6 or whatever it was. So it just became a PDF attachment to an email, and then some clever person suggested that I might like to write it as a book and publish it on Amazon or whatever it is that people do. I didn't know anything about it, so he did it for me, and I'm very grateful for that. And then the suggestion went further that I took it to a publisher. So I did take it to a publisher, or suggested it to numerous publishers. It got rejected a number of times, as I think, you have to develop quite a thick skin if you're going down the publishing route. And eventually I spoke to Georgina Bentliff from Hammersmith Health Books, and she said, yeah, let's take a look at this. And she liked it, and that is the result, the whole body solution.
Wow.
So that was my first published book.
And then you've got Love Your Bones, which is actually an amalgamation of 2 books, isn't it, really?
It is. It's an upgrade. I'm all about the upgrades. So it was a book that I actually originally wrote for my mother, who was diagnosed in the 1990s with osteoporosis. So I decided that I would actually write this book for her. And I published it, self-published it, and stuck it on the internet again, and went down to local printers and said, oh, can you, sort of do what you do and make me some copies? So they did, and I sold some at events that I was speaking at. And then Georgina, my publisher, got hold of the idea that you've got a self-published book, haven't you? And I said, yes, I've got a self-published book. So it all came from there, and what I did was I upgraded each chapter. I put a lot of scientific references in because obviously I'm a trained vet, I like my science. Stuff has to stack up scientifically for me and for a lot of readers as well. So did a lot of research, and this book also has 100 recipes, all vegan, not all of them raw, but again just to help people that are struggling with bone density and thinking that they've got to drink cow's milk, for example, which is not correct. And I wrote that for people that fundamentally the demographic here is women over age 35, but increasing numbers of men are actually now starting to get diagnosed with osteoporosis. So it is a concern, and it's not just older people. 29-year-old long-distance female runners can get osteoporosis. And there's actually been a story recently in the media. I follow athletics because I run and I like athletics, I always have. A very good long-distance runner that's in the British team broke her ankle in a swimming pool, of all things. She's 20 and she has osteoporosis.
Wow.
That's for her as well, not just for old women with curved backs and the sort of chronic debility that it causes. So people worldwide are having this problem, and I just wanted to put forward some suggestions for people as to how they could reduce the likelihood, prevent the problem, and even regain bone health later in life.
And the third book, how did that come about, the fatigue solution?
That came about because I think my publisher wanted some more off me. She wasn't done with me yet. My publisher was not done with me, so she knew that I'd had.
But at least she's also pushing your boundaries as well, isn't she?
Absolutely.
Pushing that envelope and making you work.
She's making me work. Thank you, Georgina. I really appreciate it. No, seriously, I do really appreciate it. So it came about.
She's talking to you, not about you.
Georgina, I'm talking to you. I love you.
So the third book, the fatigue solution.
The third book, the fatigue solution, is my story combined with science.
Yeah.
So it's basically what got me into that mess in the first place, and it talks about my early life, how I developed my determined personality. I am a type A, can't help it, you've probably noticed.
Oh, what's a type O? We'll come back to type A. We'll talk about that. Let's finish this story first.
Sure. So I talk about how I got into the mess in the first place by working myself into the ground, never getting enough rest, always taking on too much, always pushing myself. Had a complete health crisis and then switched everything around, as we've previously spoken about. And I wanted to just remember that, and also remember what I did and write about what I did, and then scientifically, even though I had no idea what I was doing at the time, because it was 1990 and there was no internet, so I had no point of reference. I had to jump through hoops to actually get any idea of why it might have worked scientifically. So I just wrote about what I did, what happened, the science behind why it would have worked, and how things are now in my life. So
that sounds like an amazing journey that you've been on, and thank you for sharing that story with us.
Oh,
now you're actually going to go to the Far East, aren't you?
I am.
And
yes.
That sounds amazing. And you've been doing lots of training, and look at your physique now. It's amazing. It's like wow. As you do.
As you do. So yes. My my running has taken me to many interesting places, and in May I have committed to doing, some people might think a fairly insane thing. It's not as insane as other people are doing, but the plan is to fly out to China on the 14th of May, run a race on the Great Wall of China after having taken in a tour of China, as you would. I've always wanted to go to China, I've always wanted to see the Great Wall, and I saw this trip advertised and thought, I'm going to do that. So now I'm in full training and I'm running up to 50 miles a week in my limited spare time. And I'm running the Great Wall of China race, which has 6,128 steps in it, as I understand. Haven't quite managed that in training as yet. Okay. And then a week later I'm running the Thunder Dragon in Bhutan, in the Himalayas, for those that don't know where Bhutan is. So that's an altitude race, and I actually at the moment have no way of simulating altitude, but I could just, I suppose, hold my breath underwater and see what happens.
Wow, wow, that sounds full on. Now, you mentioned about type A personality. What is a type A personality? Type A personality
is go, 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 go. Push, push.
Oh dear.
A bit addictive. Yes.
I think I need to learn about this because...
Well, maybe I need to learn conversely a little bit more about chilling out and allowing, because I tend to be more along the plane of got to create rather than allow. So I think we could learn a lot from each other, actually.
But also I think this is a period of balance where we are moving from creating and being as well. So, but you also, but the amazing thing is that you're working full time as a vet, and you're also being able to do all this stuff. I mean, how does that come about?
It comes about because I think my personality shows that if you want something, you will make enough time to do it. And I think there's a lovely phrase which I'll try and remember as we speak about why I do this. When people say, well, how do you fit it all in? There are two factors that I talk about. Number one is, although I own a TV, I don't actually watch it. And number two is I don't perhaps need quite as much sleep as normal people my age. I'm not sure. So I am prepared to do what most people won't do to get the results that most people can't achieve. And that's sort of a bit about my personality, really. So I do what most people won't do because I've got a goal, I've got a vision as to what I want to achieve. And if I want to achieve something badly enough, I will pull out all the stops to make that happen.
Wow. So, but is that to do with being a type A personality as well, though?
I think it probably is.
Right.
I think it probably is. I think there are a lot of people that I know who are highly successful and very driven, and they make stuff happen and they achieve their goals. Now, we've all got different goals, but I think if you've got a goal that's big enough and bright enough and shiny enough and you want it, you'll do it.
But that's also about living in alignment. Once we know what we wanted to achieve and are passionate about things that we really, really love, we will make that happen.
Yes.
Work towards that goal and that vision. And I think that's really important, just to establish something that you really enjoy and love, and just do it.
Yes. Yeah, and it's the same with exercise, actually. And obviously, before we came on camera, we were talking about, why do I exercise so much, and what other people might be able to learn from that. And I went to an interesting talk a few years ago, given by an ex-coach from the American Gymnastics Olympic squad, and he said that, I'm going to tell you in a minute, he said, in 5 minutes' time, I'm going to tell you what exactly is the best form of exercise. They were all, attentions, tell us. I want to know what the best... And he then flicked his slide presentation and it said, the one that you will do. So it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it?
This is no-brainer, really, isn't it?
If you have two left feet and you haven't got moves, then a dance class is probably not your thing. If you love swimming, then get in the water. If you think, oh, I don't know where to start, go out for a brisk walk. There's always going to be something you can do. If you're chair bound, you can do upper body exercises. And I have a lovely friend who teaches exercise to elderly people who might be amputees, for example. So she'll throw balls to them when they're sitting there in their chair, and they love it. They absolutely love it. And one of her sessions is always fun. And she teaches Tai Chi on the beach at Christmas to 96-year-olds. So there's always something that you can do. What if you've got one leg? You can, look at these Paralympic people. They're pushing the boundaries of what's possible when you're compromised. So just because you may even somebody with a physical disability, they can still do something.
Wow, I have learned so much today, and I'm really grateful that you're here today.
Thank you.
And I have, and I'm honestly honoured for you to be here and showing me your wonderful books and also sharing your life story, which has been absolutely fascinating.
Thank you very much.
I'm so touched. So thank you so much. So I think one thing I want to leave with is there any advice that you'd like to give to people, just generally, before we go?
General advice, yes. Oh, I could be on for hours. But I think the first thing is, obviously, I guess your audience are mostly going to be health-conscious vegans, or not necessarily.
Not necessarily. I think these are people who are just starting out, maybe, or those people that have been experienced in veganism, but also I'm also bringing in spirituality as well into what I do. So it's a mixture of things. And those people who don't really have a voice, and that's the whole purpose of these sessions that I do, which I love doing, because I get to talk to people that are really interesting, like Max. And I get to share that, and for me that's a real honour. So,
advice, yes, I think it'll boil down to 2 points actually. Number one, find your passion. Whatever it is that you are passionate about, try to facilitate in every way to be able to do that. So live with passion. And secondly, upgrade. That's 3 things, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
I love that.
It's like when you're buying a house, isn't it? Like, what are the 3 most important things about buying a house? Location, location, location. Yeah. So when we're talking about our health, when we're talking about our life goals and our life path, upgrade. Because there's always something that you can upgrade so that you can then continue to become a better version of yourself as time goes on. So I think those 2 things would be my parting comments.
Brilliant. So I think that's all from me. That's all from Matt.